Hello. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about virtual realities, the obstacles to adoption for virtual reality. Next slide. And why those obstacles are maybe not what you think they are. Uh, First, a little background about myself. My love affair with virtual reality actually began with Dungeons and Dragons. It is not a device you attach to your face, but it is a virtual world. It exists in your imagination. In the early 80s, I became obsessed with Dungeons and Dragons when I was a kid. And I consider this the first virtual world that I ever participated in. And I was also the first generation to actually get a personal computer. I was the Commodore 64, this was my machine. I got this in like 82. You know, I was the first generation to actually grow up learning how to program, learning how to code, actually diving into this and trying to figure out what you can actually do with this type of technology. And early on, I stumbled upon something that really changed my whole perspective on what computers can do for you. So I stumbled on this world called Habitat, and this was really the first virtual world in a computer that I ever saw. You had avatars, it was a persistent virtual world, it was not a game. It was a place where you made friends, you had relationships with people, you had a personality, and you really lived this whole second life, and it really triggered something in me that just never went away. And around that time, I also started hearing from this crazy-looking guy, Jaron Lanier. This is the guy who basically invented the term virtual reality. He started the first virtual reality company in the late 80s. And he was talking about this crazy new technology that would let you go anywhere and do anything. And to me, this just seemed like magic. This seemed like the logical end use of computers. If you have a computer, what do you do with it? You build a virtual world that you can go inside that computer, go inside that virtual world that up until now only existed in your imagination. And this totally resonated with me and just never went away. But at the time, virtual reality, it looked cool, it sounded cool, but it was so expensive that nobody could get access to it. And I didn't know at the time, but it also didn't work very well. I mean, it was terrible in the 90s, in the late 80s and 90s. Of course, not getting access to it meant I didn't know that it didn't work. So I made a career in the adjacent field of telepresence. This was as close as I could get to virtual reality and actually build a career at the time. And doing telepresence, I learned how to connect people across distance. And I really liked the idea that I could feel present somewhere else, but what really resonated with me was that I could feel the presence of another person who was not actually in the room with me. I could feel like they were there with me. And this was really cool, and I liked telepresence, and it was a lot of fun, but I was always still obsessed with this idea of virtual world. So on the side, I was playing around with Second Life. And in the mid-2000s, I did a real deep dive into Second Life. You know, this is what I did when I went home from my telepresence job. I went into a virtual world, and I lived there. And Second Life had a profound effect on me. I became a better person because of Second Life. I made some of the best friends that I still have, people that I still talk to this day, as avatars in this virtual world. And this just, again, reinforced that there's really something really special happening here, or that can happen here if you put all this stuff together. So I was still working in telepresence, but I knew that VR is coming. And I decided about 3-4 years ago to head out to Silicon Valley. I was living in New York at the time. I said, if virtual reality is coming, I got to be on ground zero, on the ground floor. I'm going to go out to Silicon Valley. So I went out to Silicon Valley. I said I will just go to the local virtual reality meetup, because that must exist in virtual reality. But it didn't. Or it must exist in Silicon Valley, but it didn't. There was no such thing. So I started one. And this was our very first event. The great thing about this picture is that every person in this picture, pretty much, is now running a VR company. These were all people that are just, they had this obsession with it before it was even there. They believed in it. You know, they saw that there was a VR meetup. They came, and now, you know, pretty much everyone here is involved in a virtual reality company. A lot of them are funded. Some of them are VCs now. It's really interesting. So we did this VR meetup, and it became wildly successful. On our 1-year anniversary, we threw the first consumer virtual reality conference in Silicon Valley. You'll see in here, Australia was represented here. Virtual Reality Ventures, who is over there exhibiting, was here at the very first conference. There were only about 35 companies in VR at the time, and we had them all there, which was fantastic. We did this again in 2015. We're now in a full-on convention center, 1,400 people, over 100 exhibitors. Palmer Luckey spoke. We had, Oculus, Sony, all the companies were there. Everyone was there. Every developer was there. Again, Australia was well represented at SVVR 2015. And we continue to grow the meetup. The meetup has been going now for 2.5 years, every single month. The same group of people coming together, a couple hundred people come together. And we're the largest meetup in the world for virtual reality. And the reason I'm telling you this is because I basically created a life for myself where I am immersed in a virtual reality future. I spend hours every day in virtual reality. All of my friends are either running virtual reality companies, developing virtual reality games. They all have the hardware. They're all using it daily. So this gives me a little insight into how people actually use this technology in the real world and what it looks like, and there's some surprising things about that. And I'm really concerned. I want virtual reality to happen. This is my passion since I was a kid. I want this to happen so badly. So I'm really concerned with the obstacles to virtual reality. And for a long time, the obstacles to virtual reality were that it cost too much and that it didn't work. And now the technical problems are largely being solved. Over the past couple of years, we've made amazing strides. The stuff actually works really well now. We've made these big conceptual leaps, and at this point, it's going to be incremental. It's going to incrementally get better. We've made the big jump where it actually works now. You can feel present. You don't get sick. It actually works. And on the price side, you can now get entry-level VR for a couple bucks and your smartphone, or a couple $1,000 and you can have the best VR experience in the world. And that's including the PC that it runs on. The largest obstacle is social. There's resistance. We all have the sense that maybe we should be careful with this technology, right? We all have this vision that this stuff could go wrong. And some of the biggest obstacles that we think about, virtual reality will isolate us, right? This is a technology that's going to make us all lonely, sitting sad and alone in our houses by ourselves. We'll have no friends anymore. We're just going to be, just us and our computers and our screens. And that's kind of a sad idea. Virtual reality will make us unhealthy. We're all going to be sitting in front of our computers all day long now, even more than we are now. We're not going to be getting up. We're going to get no exercise. We're just going to, it's going to be terrible for our bodies and our minds. And that virtual reality will imprison us. We'll basically be tied to these machines, and this is not actually, doing anything good for us. It's actually trapping us. We're locked behind this screen. And I'm here to tell you that from what I see on the ground, with being surrounded by people using this stuff every day, that this is completely wrong. And in fact, it's opposite. Virtual reality connects people. What VR experiences keep people coming back again and again? It's the experiences where there are other people there. If you go in there and your friends might be there, there might be other people in that environment that you want to see. You want to miss something. Your friends are hanging out in there. These are the experiences people keep doing again and again. In social and shared virtual reality, people they're in there all the time. They're in there right now. If you go online right now, you'll find at least 5 or 6 virtual worlds that have people in virtual reality right now just hanging out and talking to other people. They're not sitting there alone and not engaging. They're making friends. They're talking to people that are geographically too far away to speak with. They're doing interesting things too. Social activities like karaoke is actually pretty popular in virtual reality. That one really surprised me, but it makes so much sense. You're slightly introverted. Maybe you're a little nervous about doing karaoke in a bar, but in virtual reality, you're kind of hiding behind your avatar a little bit. It allows you to kind of take baby steps into some of these social experiences that you might not do in the real world. People are dancing in virtual reality. That one has really surprised me, but I like it. It makes a lot of sense. And people are building together. These are just some of the companies doing social virtual reality right now. All of these have traction. They have users that are actually in there every night, day after day, hanging out, making friends, watching movies, doing all the things that people do in the real world together, but across distance. And just to bring it back to the Dungeons and Dragons, Altspace recently announced a partnership with the owners of Dungeons and Dragons. You can actually play Dungeons and Dragons in virtual reality right now. So I'm done. I'm happy. But this connecting people is not just happening in virtual worlds. It's happening in the real world. It's happening here. You guys are all together because you're excited about this technology. You know, I run these events around virtual reality, and I've made more friends in the past couple of years because of virtual reality than I've ever had in my whole life. And that's true for almost everyone I know who's working in this industry. There's something unique about virtual reality. When you have a really cool experience, the first thing you want to do is share it with someone. And then when you both share an experience, that strengthens the bond. You now have a stronger friendship because of this shared experience. This is something unique to virtual reality. I like to say that virtual reality is actually the ultimate social lubricant. It works better than alcohol to get nerds talking to each other. And I think that goes beyond nerds. Virtual reality will make us healthier. It's not bad for us. Virtual reality is actually, it's nothing like I imagined. It's not sitting down on your desk. It's actually getting up. Motion controllers, which have really hit VR in the last year, changed the whole equation. They really do. It's now a full body experience. In virtual reality now, when you use it, you're waving your arms, you're jumping around, you're really engaging, you're being active. I actually think I lost weight since I got a Vive, which is a room scale full motion controller VR system. You know, because I'm now standing, whereas I used to sit all day long at my desk, at my computer, I'm now standing for hours at a time, and I'm moving around, I'm doing exercise, I'm doing all sorts of physical activity. It's become a very active, engaged experience. And there's new technologies coming in where you can get more than just your hands, but your whole body, or get your hands in there with the Leap Motion, or with these tracking suits where you can get your feet in there, you get your whole body. And now when you're in virtual reality, you're a real avatar that has full body language, just like a person. And there's interesting exercise applications happening. You know, this is a very common application to see people riding exercise bikes in virtual reality. There's a bunch of companies working on this. There's a bunch of other fitness-related applications, but I think this works the best right now. And the other one is that virtual reality will not imprison us. Virtual reality will free us. Virtual reality will free us from geography. You can now travel the world, go places that you couldn't go. This is not going to mean people are going to travel less. This is going to give people a chance to have a taste of places and then say, okay, I really want to go there now because I keep trying it in virtual reality. I'm obsessing over this place, I want to go. Or just to explore the world a little more and find places that they might want to go in the real world. It's also going to free us to explore places that we can't really go. I can't go to space. But there's this great project that came out of one of our members in our group that they're putting a VR camera on the space station. They got their Kickstarter funded. This is actually happening. They're working with NASA. They're actually putting the VR camera on the space station, so you'll actually be able to go to space. That's something that we just can't do. And there's another great application from a company called InnerSpace where you can actually go into the human body and explore inside of your body. I can't shrink myself down and put myself inside someone's body, but in this way I can in virtual reality. Something completely impossible. That's even more exciting than emulating reality. And virtual reality will free us from our own deficiencies. With virtual reality, you can actually improve yourself. You can improve your health. You can treat conditions, phobias, PTSD, autism. We saw some great examples in the last presentation. Physical training. It's really the ultimate tool for hacking the human mind. Next slide. And virtual reality will free us to express ourselves in new ways. I often think, what if Beethoven was born 150 years later? He wouldn't have had the tools that he needed to make his art. I mean, to me, that would be such a travesty. Virtual reality is going to allow people to create art and creatively express themselves in new ways, in ways that don't exist today. So there are artists, there are Beethovens of VR that just don't have the technology yet. As the technology gets out there, we're going to see amazing new art. This is a tilt brush. Some of you may have seen this application. It's a 3D painting application where you actually get into painting and you paint around and you can actually walk around. And if you have this set up in a large enough space, you can actually create like a really big scene and move all around within it. But one of the things about tilt brush that amazes me is that the creations in tilt brush, they do not look computerized and very cold. They look very organic, and that's because you're actually using your body as the paintbrush. And they actually look more expressive and organic, I think, than in other forms of art. Oculus recently showed Medium, which is their 3D sculpting tool, where you can actually go in virtual reality and sculpt with your hands. Now, I've tried to learn Maya to do 3D modeling. I've been trying to learn Maya, I think, my whole life, and I'm terrible at it. It's really hard application to learn. It takes years of constant use to get good at it, and if you don't do it every day, you're not going to get good at it. It's not intuitive. It's a 2D application to create 3D objects, which makes no sense to me. With virtual reality, you can actually create 3D in 3D. You don't need to learn anything to do that. It's just like sculpting with your hands, sculpting clay. This is 3D modeling for everyone. And another great application is called Make VR. This is another 3D modeling application, but this one is really tied into 3D printing. So you can make something with Make VR, and then you can print it at the end. So how cool is that? You can actually go in VR, build something, and then spit it out into reality at the end, hit print. You have to wait for your 3D printer. That takes a long time, but the concept is there. It's very cool, and it's just going to get better and better. Virtual reality will not isolate us. I see this every day. It's bringing people together. Virtual reality will connect us. Virtual reality will not make us unhealthy. I've actually lost weight because of virtual reality. I'm not the only one. Many people I know actually feel that the same thing. Virtual reality will help people improve themselves in ways never before possible. We never had this fine, detailed control over our own brains, our own bodies, in the way we will have now. Next slide. Virtual reality will not imprison us. It'll allow us to lead richer lives, experience things that we could never have experienced before, become more knowledgeable, experience empathy, get into other people's shoes, see through other people's eyes. This opens up the human experience and takes it to a whole new level. And virtual reality will allow us to express ourselves in new ways. And I believe that one is the most important, because that's going to unleash a wave of creativity unlike anything we've ever seen before. So, thank you.